What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal back again. I am Shredlord.
Necrotic Nick.
And we're here to bring you yet another excellent album review. This time, the band Entrails gave a new release called Grip of Ancient Evil. Now, what kind of a grip? Is it like a death grip? Is it one of those like Grip 9000 ones? I don't know. Let's find out.
G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip. Sometimes the best ways are the old ways. Anyway, this comes out on the 18th of July on Hammer Heart Records. This band formed in 1990 in Sweden, and this band has kind of like an interesting origin story because they formed in 1990. They ended up breaking up in, I believe, 1998 after, doing a round of demos that I guess no one in the band was really pleased with. And then reformed in 2008, and that is honestly where their career really starts because that's when they started putting out full-length releases. This is their 8th full-length overall. I've been a fan since their 2nd full-length, The Tomb Awaits. I actually covered An Eternal Time of Decay and a collection update. That's actually, I think, one of the few times I've covered this band as only in like collection updates, honestly. I haven't done a full-on review for them. And this band is straight-up old-school Swedish death metal, fiercely locked into this very old-school Stockholm sound for the most part. Now, their sound is just, again, very much like locked in that 90s sound, but over the last couple of albums, they've definitely flirted with more melody, and honestly, it's kind of lost a little bit of its luster. I'll be honest, the last 2 albums, Rise the Reaper and An Eternal Time of Decay, they were all right, definitely more melodically inclined, I would say. Like, they kind of lost a little bit of that old school, like, Dismember, Entombed, Carnage kind of bite. So I was kind of hopeful this one would kind of like get back to basics, get back to being snarly and vicious, like, World Inferno, which was the last one that I was really into, and that was in 2017.
I have never heard of this band before in my entire life, but here's something I do know. They like the word death. Death pops up a lot in this band. My first impression was almost like very early Arch Enemy. Very early, to where it was still almost more punky D-beat than it was blast beats and crazy double bass. Now, we just reviewed another album that the title track is the intro track with absolutely no music. I did not think we were going to see this again because it was so random and odd, and you just shouldn't do that. Well, psych. Here we are again. The title track, Grip of Ancient Evil, is the opening track, but also an instrumental track with more medieval, Celty, festive, knights jousting, Game of Thrones holiday special kind of deal.
Springtime in Rivendell. Yeah, it has the word evil in the title for damn sure, but it is probably the least evil sounding song on the entire
Nothing
album.
evil about it.
I don't get this trend. Like, this has happened actually quite a few times to us where like the title track is just an intro, and I'm from the school of thought where the title track should be your centerpiece. Like, that's the one that carries the weight of the entire album's name. Don't make it an intro.
Yeah, especially an intro that really didn't go anywhere. It was almost like background noise. It was just kind of wallowing fiddles and various string instruments in the back, but it felt more like atmosphere than it actually felt like a composition.
And tonally, it didn't match much of this album.
No, not at all.
I mean, there's, melodic stuff on here, but not a lot that really like lines up with that intro at all, because when you get down to Untreatable Decay, the song itself is, just kind of a gritty, D-beat driven, snarling, old school Swedish death metal song. A little bit of like melodic flourishes here and there, but again, nothing that kind of lines up with the intro that kind of sets you up. Like, even like the more evil noises that started creeping in the background of the intro, it didn't quite line up. And right away, I picked up on like an issue with the production here. The production here feels really flat.
Yeah, the guitars do not cut through at all, which is kind of weird considering it's got that old school 90s HM2 guitar sound.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got the buzzsaw thing going on, but the way it's mixed just felt like it took a lot of the balls right out of the guitars, and the vocals were burying damn near everything else.
Yeah, the vocals right out in front, which, I get that in a lot of mixes.
Of course.
Vocals out
front. But too much.
But yeah, and that, with the guitars being very squashed like that, to me it almost sounded like an issue with like dynamic range, because at times, sometimes the vocals would sound louder, but they always feel like they were kind of overpowering the guitars at points. And if you have the HM2 tone, that's the thing that should be just like, right out in front, sizzling your fucking eardrums.
Yeah, they call it a chainsaw for a reason, because it's supposed to cut through. This doesn't really cut through the way it should, and I definitely think it's more of a production issue than a tone setup issue.
But musically, this kind of walks a very tried and true path. In fact, a path that is not only like walked through, it's been paved over. There are lines fucking painted on it. There are crosswalks. It's a goddamn road that a lot of these classic bands have done before, which this band is, again, like oddly in that classic mix with, again, Dismember, Entombed, Grave, etc. But because they kind of got this late start, they feel kind of still a little bit outside of that.
Let me say this. That road is so damn traveled, it's like, I'm going to try to use the widest range of road that I can think of for all the United States, so maybe the viewers will understand. It's like I-75. It has been driven on so much that it's constantly under construction and repeatedly popping tires with potholes, causing your insurance companies to raise your rates.
But yeah, the album overall, and I would say like this band pretty much, they kind of just check off all the boxes that you kind of look for in terms of the style. Like you have more biting aggro songs like Skin 'Em All and Wings of Death. They're a little bit more snarly, a little bit more vicious. You got tons of like crusty D beats, double time grooves, chuggy riffs, a lot of tremolo harmonies. Not a lot of like solos, but a lot of like melodic leads on top. Like, just to kind of like, put a little splash of salt and pepper on the song. Because a lot of these songs are just very like meat and potatoes. They are very straightforward. Like even when it comes down to comparing them to like a lot of the classic old guard, they feel a little bit unseasoned or undercooked, I would say.
Two things. Number one, they feel a little formulaic, where it's part A, part B, and part C, and you're just kind of rearranging them here. Towards the back half of the album, I think you get more sections that give it more variety and give it more character, but at that point, it's a little too late. And even when they do bring in a really great part, there's a section in the song Hunt in the Shadows, where it's this nice slow breakdown. It gets very melodic and heavy and just kind of powerful. But the problem is when they settle into something like that, which isn't that often throughout the album, it's always very quick and it just moves kind of through really quickly. It's like they're so in a rush to get back to doing the exact same thing for most of this album, which is kind of that D beat, just kind of basic riff swinging off 2 or 3 different chords back and forth. There are times, though, when the riffs can be a little bit more complicated, but that's kind of the, what do I want to call that? The, not schizophrenia, but the like bipolarness, I guess, of the guitar at times, where there's tracks like in the beginning of Untreatable Decay and Conquering the Unknown, where the riffs almost feel lazy. It's almost like 2 or 3 just kind of chords slopping back and forth to each other. But then there'll be times where they actually put a little more thought into it and such. And while there's nothing wrong with being basic, some of the more basic riffs just didn't feel like they had any power or any character behind them.
Yeah, like, best way I can describe it is like the riffs are good. They feel stock though. Like, these are riffs that you could definitely pick up on, again, a lot of these classic releases. And there's not really much to them where they kind of like give them their own little like flash or character. And the moments that come across as like more dynamic or a little bit more showy in terms of like, mixing up the song a little bit, at times they can feel kind of forced because you have this weird contrast between something that is very creative at the time. Like, oh, wow, we have like this really cool clean break. It's a little bit folky. The melodies are very rich and, kind of bright at times. But then you kind of get back to the standard fare, which it's fine, but it's, just kind of there. Like, I like meat and potatoes death metal. It's a lot of fun. And it is really interesting to watch bands work within a very limited wheelhouse in terms of like different dynamics they employ. But a lot of this was very rinse and repeat. And again, it lacked a lot of character up until you got down to like, some of the last tracks in here where it kind of opened up the playbook a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah, well, I don't understand why they waited until the very end. Like, this album's about 50 minutes long. Why are we waiting until 42 to 45 minutes in, or even 40 minutes in, to give it some variety? I mean, the album's almost over by then. You know what I mean? Like, and I think some of these songs had potential to be stronger had they maybe taken the time to flesh out a little bit more varied structure or take the time to upgrade them a little bit, it could have pushed these songs much harder.
Like, for example, towards the end, you have a song called Inner Demon, which features Hellbutcher from Niflheim on it, and also from his band Hellbutcher now. And that little bit of extra, like, vocal flair in it really kind of opens it up, because Hellbutcher's delivery is delightfully over the top. It's this very dry, blackened scream. He sounds absolutely demonic, and it's fucking perfect. That and the song is a little bit different overall, because it's one of the more slow brooding tracks in here, which you get teased like slower brooding moments. And, you know, I love good pockets of groove, like slow down and just chug on that tone. That's what the HM2 tone is built for. Just chug on that bitch. But frequently this band will kind of, I guess, course correct or auto correct to like a D beat and then kind of get down to that old school stomp again. I was like, all right, well, you know, you did that earlier, but it's still fun. But Inner Demon stays slow, menacing, dark. The atmosphere and vibe of that song is completely different than anything else on the album, because it just has this more legit evil quality. Because a lot of this, I would just say, is like just kind of old school aggressive. Like, it's kind of got a punky, snarly, fuck you spirit. I mean, these guys are older guys. This is like, get the fuck off my lawn death metal. You know, I like that. But I wanted to hear something a little bit more evil and sinister. Same thing with like Graveyard Rising. I like the cool, like isolated drum intro, and it breaks into an almost like Carcass-like gallop. And they have some fun with the riffs on there. There's, you know, cool riff changes on here, but again, you kind of get that course correction thing where if you get a newer car like me, it will fucking jerk the fucking wheel if you wander into another lane. You know, I don't always want this band to stay in lane, because when they got outside of it a little bit, it was a little bit more interesting. There's frequently harmonized riffs all over here, but, you know, making them stand out with like a different sort of rhythm and a different sort of like vibe to it, that's what really kind of like sank in for me. Like, I would actually remember this song for certain characteristics that didn't show up on other songs.
And as far as the vocals go, I hate to say this, but I felt like Hellbutcher's vocals on Inner Demon were the best vocals on the album. Not to say the vocals on this album are bad, but sometimes they have almost, once again, I listen to a lot of Arch Enemy, even the early stuff with their original singer, Johan Leva, who was not anywhere near a solid vocalist. He had an almost like whiny kind of growl, and I feel like at times this singer has that a little bit. I don't know if it's like whiny or if he's just trying to push it a little bit. It doesn't always grab me, although it does work for the music. It's just something that kind of stood out in my mind. Like, it just felt, I don't know the right word to describe it, but it definitely clashed with my ears.
It's very similar to Maddie or LG from Dismember or Entombed. Like, it's kind of groaned at times, but it does feel a little labored, and it's very one note. And even when it comes down to like trying to deliver like a weightier chorus with like, you know, heavier growls, it still feels very labored. Now, to this album's credit, in terms of like comparing it to like their previous releases, like the last two, where I feel like they really kind of like latched on to almost more of like a melodic death metal sound, except with HM2 guitars, this is grittier. This sounds more like the Stockholm sound. It isn't as much about melody, but again, it kind of lacks character, and that's where it really, you know, kind of like loses me a lot. And at points where it tries to gain some character by doing something a little bit different, it really, I don't know, it feels off. Like the song Insane Death, not to be confused with Wings of Death. This song, man, all right, when it comes in probably more bright and triumphant than any other song on here. And actually, you know, initially I kind of liked it. I was like, all right, this is like an old school heavy metal gallop. Like, this is something that Iron Maiden would totally rock, except, you know, not with that guitar tone. But it has this lead melody on it that I imagine with, I don't know, like a different guitar tone, it might sound nice, but
the way it is, it almost sounds like some medieval folk line.
Yeah.
It's hokey.
But, you know, it doesn't really resonate with anything like epic. Like, this would be like, you know, listening to the score of like Lord of the Rings or something like that, except it's being played on a kazoo.
I got this. It's like the metal equivalent of berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who likes berries and cream.
God, that's almost to the rhythm of it too. But here's the weird thing. While I don't like that part really at all, because it just feels off, it feels like the tone just collides, The rest of the song I think is pretty awesome in terms of like some of the heaviest, chuggiest riffs on the album. That song has just got some absolute beastly riffs on it, but it repeats into that like little heavy metal part, and I'm like, none of this feels like it was completely gelled here. Yeah, overall, like this album, like it has a lot of the core elements that I like about the sound, because everyone knows I'm a fucking HM2 slut. But when it comes down to the execution, it feels lackluster, like lackadaisical. That's definitely a word for it. Like the songs are on the precipice of like kind of like jumping out and becoming like a little bit more vibrant and just energetic, and you know, kind of capturing that old school fucking gnarly spirit, but they kind of just get back in like cruise control and stay in that center lane, and you know, that's fine, you'll get to your destination, but you know, the journey feels like it's just kind of boring. So yeah, I'm gonna give this 2.5 stars. Like, I had higher hopes for this one. I do appreciate the return to like a slightly more gritty sound versus like the last two, which I feel like again were kind of a little bit more like mellow deathy. But overall, like there's not a lot of like standout material that would keep me coming back to this. This is a very middle of the road HM2 death metal release. It's not terrible, but it's also not great. It's just kind of in that middle zone where like, yeah, that album came out and this band has most definitely put out better albums before. I think Inner Demon, Skin 'Em All, pretty solid tracks. Graveyard Rising. Again, there are some solid standout tracks, but there's not enough of them, especially on a 45-minute, almost 50-minute album. There's just too much rinse and repeat of a lot of the same ideas, and I know, you know, Swedish death metal kind of has its sound, it has its lane, believe me, I definitely know that. But even when it's fiercely meat and potatoes, I feel like you can just sprinkle some seasoning on there, whether it's like some fun solos, some more atmospheric sections, changing the tone from something like punky and aggressive to something like sinister and dark. There's not enough of that on this album for me to really like want to come back to it. But still, if you're a diehard fan of this band, I still urge you to check it out. And of course, if you're fans of, you know, Carnage, Entomb, Dismember, the usual suspects there, check it out, give it a whirl. Who knows, you might dig it.
I couldn't agree anymore. I have to give this a 2.5 as well. I think this album had a lot of potential, but it kind of fizzled itself out. My biggest takeaways from this were when they decided to play it safe and be very more meat and potatoes, it almost felt like there was energy missing. Like they weren't putting a lot of energy into executing it. And then there were times where they would give us a really cool section, but then for 20 seconds, like once again, like they were just in such a rush to get back to doing the same thing that they were doing for a majority of this album, that anytime something that gave it life or character popped up, 99% of the time it was gone before you could even really fully enjoy it, or before the part even gets a chance to breathe and develop. And that really brings the album down for me. Even the very last song, Consumed by Insects, we didn't really talk about that, but there's a really nice, beautiful guitar, melodic guitar. It's very epic and dark and moody, and it's really good, but too little too late, because the first half of this album didn't really give you much of that, and then the second half started to give it to you, but they would just give you a little bit and then take it right away, and once again just kind of keep feeding you the same ingredients over and over again. And I really think that they had something here that they could have progressed into a much higher elevated album, but because they didn't do some of those things either more or earlier on in the album, it just kind of fell flat. And like Nick said, it's just kind of there. So at least give it a whirl. You're not going to hate it, but once again, there's not anything on here that's going to make you come back repeatedly to keep listening to this album.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which
we are going to do one, I swear.
We're going to do one. Again, work schedules and such. Right now, John has been like beaten down by overtime, and eventually that's going to end.
They're not giving Jam and John a break. So, you know, he needs a good weekend, perhaps a nice, firm, yet sensual shoulder rub.
You're on that one, right?
I could be.
Okay.
He's going to let me tase his asshole one of these days. It's going to happen.
You're going to lure him in with a massage?
No, I'm not going to lure him in. It's probably hard drugs.
Oh, okay.
I've got to get him like super fucked up and then be like, you know, it'd be funny for the channel, man, if I shot you in the asshole with a fucking stun gun. And he's got to be really inebriated to go, yeah, man. And then that's my ticket in.
Anyway, membership's the main way to support the channel. And if you'd like to join up and become a member of this and listen to us talk about God knows what, There's a join button down below just to hit and smash and flick, tickle. I don't know what you do to it. You can do whatever you want to it. It's not telling.
Just lick the screen. And last but certainly not least, thank you guys, the viewers. We appreciate each and every one of you taking the times out of your day to watch our content, to leave us comments, to give us your opinions, your top lists of things, any kind of interaction that you bring or time that you spend dedicating to watching us. We cannot thank you enough. You are the reason why we do this in the first place. It's always a blast for us to sit here and talk metal music with other people who enjoy it. So the ability to do so through this channel with all of you is a gift, and we really appreciate you being here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming in the future. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.